any given moment, we have two options: step forwards into growth or step back into safety. Dare to succeed and share a moment with us in the moment. Hello and welcome. We are back with our second episode. So in this episode, we are going to cover predominantly diet culture, what it involves, what is diet culture. Vicky, what is diet culture?
I think it's a culture that goes way back when. I think it's probably set around chasing a particular way of being. I don't know, a particular look. Yeah, there's a lot to do with trends over like years, and I definitely don't think it's like a thing of my generation. I think this goes back years and years and years, and you know, some of the clients that I work with have been on a diet since 1987, and it's like this culture of how to be healthy, and then what actually determines healthy. I think it's just a whole concept of there's so many conflicting things out there. How do you actually know what to trust and what not to trust, and what is okay and what's not okay?
Yeah,
for me.
So I think we could touch on like social media diet culture. I think that is like a big topic. I think like you were saying, there's like loads of different methods out there, and like which is the right one. And I think it all depends on the individual, their needs and requirements. Because if you look at things like Slimming World, Weight Watchers, I think to a certain degree they could work. Like that method could work for a particular type of person. Longevity wise, do I think something like that is sustainable? No. And that's purely just because it does, like, they don't educate people on like portion controls or like what particular food sources to eat, etc. Like, but I do think the biggest thing is portion control. Like, they don't teach that at all. And I think another thing like we spoke about is then delving into like the relationship with food, our body, and scales. So if you look at like Slimming World and Weight Watchers, don't they have like group meetings weekly or something?
Yeah, so there's a bit more around mental health these days. Slimming World, I know, do cover things around mental health, and certainly one of the things they measure in terms of a successful intervention, if you like, is around an individual's mental health as well as cholesterol and other aspects. I have sat on a meeting where the lady who represented Slimming World said, so I sort of questioned, being the way I am, how sustainable these people, so they were saying like, oh, these people have lost weight and it was amazing, blah blah. And I said, so what actually happens when they leave? Do you carry on the study after they've left to see if they sustain that weight loss? And the lady who ran it literally said, so Slimming World's based off that accountability factor, so we tend to find when people leave they put the weight back on. And that was from the lady who represents Slimming World on a big meeting. It was crazy. And it's, I think for me, Slimming World worked for me. So I lost 6 stone on Slimming World. When I'm in it, it absolutely works, because as portion control is a thing. And I guess when you look at it from the outside, you think, well, you can eat free food. So you can just have a plate of potato and as much of it as you like, and it's free. But we both know the actual calorie intake in that and the carbohydrate and how that's processed in your body, and it's a lot more complicated than just as much potato as you like. However, I find when people say to themselves they're on a diet, or I'd say lifestyle change, but we'll go with diet actually. When they're on a diet, you tend to naturally eat less because it's so programmed in you. Like everybody, if you say diet, they'll say eat less. Like that, it's programmed that you would naturally. So even if you had the free food, what we think is you'll eat 10 potatoes instead of having the 5 you normally do. But I think most people would probably have 3 because they know they're on a diet.
Right. Okay.
Like,
I think as well, do you know, with like the meetings and stuff, don't they, like, you have to stand on scales and weigh yourself in front of everybody?
no, it's private. It's not like not like Little Britain, you know, fat fighters. When she's like, I was like, you belong in the zoo, darling. Little Britain.
Okay, so it's not like that.
No, not at all. And you don't have someone at the front calling you out for being fat either. Like, it's not about that. When I did like Rose McConnelly, so I did Slimming World at home. I didn't go to a group. But when I did Rose McConnelly, it's very similar to Slimming World. That you just don't eat anything under 5%, over 5% fat. So everything you eat has to be, 5% and less.
Okay.
And it was around the GI of food. So I think you ate more, whichever one keeps you fuller for longer, high or low.
Oh, so it'll be the carbohydrates that are higher in fiber, which is typically low GI food to moderate.
So you ate more of that to keep you fuller. And I lost a lot of weight on that as well. But when I turned up to the session, we'd go in, I'd be weighed at the back on my own with the instructor. And obviously she kept like a record of our weight ongoing. And then you'd sit down with everybody else and they'd do like Simmer of the week. They'd talk about some sort of recipe. And then at the end of that, we used to have like a little aerobic class for half an hour as well.
Okay.
So it was like an all-in. That was like 20 quid a month. And it worked. I don't hear anything about Rose McConnelly anymore.
What even is Rose McConnelly? What is that?
It's just a diet. It's just similar to Slimming World or Weight Watchers. It's just a just a group,
like a different brand.
Yeah, the diet's called Rose McConnelly diet. I went to like seminars and things with like Rose McConnelly and met her and things like that. So like I do believe they have a place.
Yeah.
I think what lacks is similar to what you said in the sustainability. So I work with a lot of clients that attend Slimming World.
Mm-hmm.
What I work on more is around them acknowledging the behaviour change that has occurred rather than sat in the fact that they're counting sins. Like, because
also the relationship I think it promotes with tying success with the scales, and that is like not good, really, is it, for like your mental health? And like long term you're going to be constantly attached to the scales and what the scales are saying, and if they don't come down you're going to think, oh shit, I'm not making progress, when that is entirely not true.
So do you think then, obviously during my journey in Slimming World, that then I was obviously very early age fat, overweight, and then my Rose McConnelly was when I was 14. And then I did Slimming World when I was, 18, 19, maybe, I can't remember. And then in between that, I've done, very early on, I did Weight Watchers. We used to write our weights on the back of a cupboard door when I was very, very young. Yeah. So obviously my attachment to understanding health was weight-based. There was nothing else. So then do you think that has moved into adulthood in terms of...
Absolutely.
It's not necessarily Slimming World, because I had an online coach and my relationship with the scales was awful. Like, I was told to weigh every day to understand that weight fluctuates, and I appreciate that. But when you're 400 £, of course, the weight is just going to go down and down and down and down and down, because you've got so much to lose and you're in a massive deficit that it just falls off you. That I never had to battle the fact that they went up. So then when that started to happen, I would then think I'm failing.
So then what did your coach say in response to that?
Stop getting on the scales every day. That's not even joking. I literally said mentally, because it got to the point where I would stop eating if the scales had gone up that morning. Wow. So I would cut what I was eating, or if they'd gone down, I'd go back on plan. I got a really unhealthy attachment with the gym. I was going 7 days a week, complete burnout. Yeah. And I was still not losing. So it was complete internal battle of why am I still fat? What's
Mhm.
going wrong? And then when obviously this was all sort of voiced and echoed, the response was, well, just weigh yourself once a week. And I said, but we've built up a habit over the course of X amount of months. Like, you've told me to do this. I've now done it. And then they said, well, you can break a habit. That's what I got. You can break a habit. No
Isn't it?
no support, no that, yeah, do you know what, I understand. And I do understand that weighing every day has a place. I'm just not sure that maybe people on their fitness journeys should start there, especially when you have a lot of fat to lose.
Yeah. And like, especially with when you look at clients or individuals that are quite large to begin with, I think you could even argue that to begin with, being in like a macro split isn't actually that essential, but as long as the individual understands their calorie intake and their protein intake, because essentially, you know, the protein is probably the most important out of three. You could argue carbs is quite important there as well, but to begin with, like you say, once you've got that lifestyle change like that, the weight is going to fall off you, but then it will hit a point where you will plateau and things will need to be progressed on more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I didn't have an understanding of macros at that point either. So how I was getting my nutrition, I probably wasn't eating enough protein either, to be fair.
But you wouldn't have known. You wouldn't have known that because that wouldn't have been explained.
And certainly in that young diet culture, when you do Weight Watchers, it's points, slimming mode is sins, and then you count calories. So what I was doing then was counting calories. I'm sticking to the calories or less. Why is it not moving?
Yeah, you would have think like he should have explained to you as well, like training 7 days a week. What's that going to cause? Fatigue, inflammation. You're feeling
in his
stressed.
defense, I don't think he knew at the time that I was training that many days a week, or as in it was more me. I think I'd retreated in. So I don't think they quite understood the level.
Okay.
It,
There's maybe like miscommunication there.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's how we fix problems, isn't it? So if my whole life I have been taught that you need to go to the gym and you need to eat less is how you lose weight, which essentially has been the narrative of all diet cultures.
Yeah.
And you go to the doctors, well, you need to go and exercise more, and watch what you're eating, blah blah. That's what you get told. So that's
no further kind of like expansion on that, or no like referrals or anything like that. It's just a case of move more, eat less, on your way.
Yeah. Or you get told at school about the healthy plate, and about, do you remember the colours of how you proportion food?
Yeah. You can actually buy the plates that are like sectioned off.
But how as a child, when you learn that image, actually equate to what's on your plate? I mean, we lived off, I say this in the nicest possible way, mainly frozen foods. So we'd have like waffles or pizza or sausage and chips, or mum would sometimes make like sausage meat pie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my mum was working 2 jobs, 3 kids, and doing a course.
Yeah.
Healthy lifestyle nutrition wasn't really on her agenda. We just needed to be fed and looked after.
Mm-hmm.
She did a very good job of that. Like,
absolutely.
And then obviously as we grew up, we learn that we are products of what we learn. Like, I never really had meat and 2 veg every night of the week like people say you should have. Never. Who has time for that?
Mm-hmm. I think especially like, and it's all relevant to, like, you could say with your mum, like she's obviously working 2 jobs, busy. The quickest thing to do is to get frozen stuff, whack it in the oven. Kids aren't moaning, you know, they've got food that they really enjoy. And then you also need to think of what knowledge was there actually out there back when your mum was growing up, when it comes to like diets and, you know, what you should and shouldn't eat, etc.
And she did support us a lot. And when we were younger, in like the Weight Watchers and Rose Connolly and the Slimming World, like my mum used to prep all my meals, which now in hindsight, I never really did any of this myself. So when I was younger, this is just like an epiphany that's come to me. When I was younger, mum, we all did Weight Watchers in the house and we counted points, but mum would only then buy Weight Watcher food. So then
That Weight Watcher, is that branded?
yeah, they used to. You used to say on the box like 2 points for this cake
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
and she'd cook meals to support us. They didn't always be sustainable because my mum doesn't want to do that. So my mum would put things in the house that she wants to eat.
Yeah.
Obviously, then would be more tasty for me. So I didn't have the willpower to say no, and I would eat the rubbish. And then mum would stop buying the Weight Watcher stuff because she's not buying expensive food for me to go and eat the rubbish.
Mhm.
And when I did like Slimming World, I lived at home. My mum literally cooked all my dinners, all of them. Prepared all my food, made me these jellies, trifle things in the fridge. Like she did everything, and I just ate it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it was so easy, because I never had to do it myself. Whereas I guess this time, actually, the shift is that I had to be accountable to myself.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's missing in diet culture. When people go to Slimming World or Weight Watchers and they're like, why is it not working? But there'll be some element they're not sticking to. That's why.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But like you can carry that into like nowadays, like me and my other half say, like you'll have people that, you know, join your team, you give them like a set amount of calories, etc., and they'll check in every single week and they look exactly the same. Their weight hasn't moved. And they're like, why is it not working? But you know that there is like a small element that they're not sticking to. And then, you know, you get a voice note 10 minutes later and they're like, oh, do you know what? Actually, I was over on my calories for like 3 days last week. So there you go. Like, it's just.
I guess that's what the shift is now, though, isn't it? In terms of previously, there was no support around sort of the psychology of eating. I know a new one that's come out is called Noom, where it's a lot to do with the psychology of what you're eating as well. Like I think it's an online app.
Okay. I don't see that.
I guess there's more about learning the behavior change. So there's the part of it where you need to alter your actual behaviors, and then there's the part of it around you need to alter your cognitive thinking and thought process.
Okay.
Because the behavior is to reach for the food, but the process will be around I'm feeling, or this will make me, and then you reach for the food. So it's about altering the behavior first.
Can I add visual cues? I think that is a big thing. Like out of sight, out of mind. But like we've had this discussion before where you've said, you know, it's potentially not been there, but you've wanted it that bad, like something's triggered, like, I don't know, you may be like emotional or angry about something and it's triggered you to want to eat that particular thing, like a cake or whatever. It's not in the house, but you want it that bad, you go out and get it.
Yeah, and if you want something, of course you will. Like like it's a bit like it is like a heroin addict or a drug addict, that as much as they might not want to be on the substance, there's a literal chemical in the brain that is craving that, and no matter, you know, they rob many, Scott certainly, you know, robbed people, didn't behave in any sort of humane manner because he just had to get the fix. Like a lot of the stuff in the house was sold. Like he sold watches, he sold bits of family things that should have meant something. But in that moment of just needing the fix, he just needed the money.
Yeah.
And that's similar with us and food. And that's the bit in the diet culture that has been missing until more recently, is that it is literally something in the brain that tells you it's the dopamine you get after. So you get the dopamine hit after.
You don't actually, that's not actually how it works. So your dopamine levels are actually at its highest moments before you act. So like I was saying to you earlier, when it comes to, say, for example, setting a goal, the journey of actually getting to that goal is where your dopamine is at its highest. You achieve that goal and you've got this huge dopamine crash. And then what happens after? You're like feeling lost and you're like, I want that dopamine high again. So then you go on a search for another thing. And then you can relate that to food as well. Like the thought of actually eating a pizza, chocolate, is really, really like exciting. You eat it, what happens after? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do, because after, that's when you start the cycle
Again.
yeah, and then you feel lousy, so to get the dopamine, you eat the pizza.
Yeah.
But then people, yeah, no, I guess that makes sense now. I think
and you can literally apply that to anything, and it's like alcohol. Like alcohol, you get this huge dopamine hit. As soon as that alcohol is like, once you've had that drink, dopamine crashes. Then what happens then? It triggers you to want that dopamine hit again. So that's why when you drink, you just keep going and going, because you just want that high, that dopamine hit.
And I think there's something to be said in that loop, in terms of like your thoughts and actions. There's also a bit in there around beliefs. So a lot of the time, what fuels us is our belief system. And that if I'm having, I guess when I'm having those down days, or before I want to go and reach the food, the thought is, this will make me feel better. But the belief system will be, well, I'm always going to be fat. This will make me feel better. I'll eat it. And then I reinforce that internal belief by having the thing that would put weight on. So I know like there is a shift sort of in diet culture around that. And I do think on social media now, there is more understanding, certainly within like the coaching industry, around habits and sustainability of how to maintain weight loss, as opposed to the culture of yo-yo. What I think is interesting though is what do you determine as a healthy body? Because back in the day, do you remember when they did, like, I'm sure it's like Vogue, and there was the Twiggy, is it Twiggy? And there was
Twiggy, yeah.
Era to be like skin and bones, wasn't there? It was to be so thin, and then there becomes like the era of like having gappy teeth, and then not to have gappy teeth.
It's
and
trends, isn't it? It's trends.
It is. And now we're in an era of body positivity. So what does a healthy body look like to someone in diet culture?
I think, especially, I want to just predominantly focus on like the females spending and investing a lot of time in like social media, and they're constantly absorbing these images that are highly edited, and like people are thinking that's how I should look.
So do you feel like there's a balance between the social media and diet culture then? There's the balance between people understanding mental health, but actually what gets posted is quite detrimental to that mental health and diet?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I do think social media could be, it can be such a powerful tool if it's used correctly. Because if you think about way back when social media wasn't a thing, and people were like actively wanting to learn more about healthy lifestyles, like the diet, etc., how would they learn that? How would they access that to be able to learn?
I guess it comes from, I don't know, if we go back to the war, when what you grew your own, didn't you? So what was healthy then? You had, I mean, post-war, but you'd have like nutritious meals because they were all homemade.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Whereas now, so in theory, what they learned then about nutrition, what was nutritious, and that should have been passed along. But I think what happened was, but with that culture came you need to finish what's on your plate. You know how grateful you need to be that you've even got food on your plate. I lived off rations, and that sort of era shifted along. But then came in processed foods, then came in quick 2-minute microwave meals. And I think what happened is the pressures of society grew and the convenience of food grew. And then the shift from what was healthy and what was nutritious turned into convenience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I listened to a podcast last week, and he was some sort of like professor in like nutrition, and it's the one that we watched last week with Stephen Bartlett.
Oh yeah, I can't remember his name though.
I want to say his name's Geo something. I could be wrong, but he delved into obesity and it becoming a crisis. And you see, like when you go to America and stuff, like the accessibility of processed foods and like extremely large portions is like, it's like everywhere. And he spoke about something to do with like survival rates and people starving and being in poverty. So they are like, and I think that's where it's all come from, like having all this food, like this processed food out and having it like easily accessible to prevent starvation. I'm sure that's kind of like the route he went down.
Yeah. Giles Yeo.
That's it. Was I kind of close? Did I like combine the names together?
I don't know. God, yeah, that's the same. I just think it's all very interesting and very relative. I guess if we hone in on sort of the UK diet culture, that would differ from other countries anyway. I guess our exposure to stuff is different. And I think here, there's probably more of a stigma around obesity than in America. So how I've always felt like as a big girl, if I went to America, I'd fit in. But maybe that's because of our stereotype of America.
Potentially, yeah.
So I feel like the diet culture over there would not be anything like ours.
No.
The exposure to like what I've had would be more people comment on your size here. But I feel like what I look like now at a size 18 would be perfectly acceptable in America. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, it does. And
so how do people online determine what is truth and what's not? So like, for example, before I started like my online coaching way back when, I always thought the protein would turn me into like Popeye. Like I thought.
What made you think that? Like, where did that stem from?
I don't know, but I always believed that like if I had like protein shakes were only for like beefy, muscly men, not even women didn't even enter it. It was just beefy, muscly men would have like protein shakes. And then I didn't really understand protein as a concept whatsoever, if I'm completely honest. And I think that, I don't know if that stemmed down from a lack of education or just...
It's like, what you don't know, you don't know.
I just don't think I ever cared. I feel like, you know, there's parts that we retain from learning and education from school. So I do remember being taught about a healthy plate. Do I care about a healthy plate? No. Like I was still going to go and spend my £2 pocket money on sweets at the corner shop on a Saturday. So I do think there's an element of not necessarily education, but around our want. I was from a big family that all ate the same. I didn't think it was abnormal. None of that was abnormal.
No, but it's your environment, isn't it? You grow up in that environment, you think that's normal.
So how online then do I decipher what is true? So let's say I grew up in that household. I grew up in a family that are bigger people, have unhealthy eating habits, but I perceive them habits as normal. And portion sizes, let me tell you, they still come back with a vengeance on Christmas Day. That how do I decipher that actually that's not healthy eating? How would I know online what to believe and what not to believe? I think that's the tricky bit. We're so exposed, and I see things on social media all the time, especially on TikTok, about do this plan for 90 days and get abs. So
oh my God, don't.
Like they're all out there, but why would I not follow that? Or I did cute nutrition where you had like one or 2 shakes a day and then 1 meal. There's the 5-2 fasting diet. The fast 800 is supposed to help people that are diabetic actually come off medication and stop the diabetes. And he's got loads of research into it. I can't remember the guy who invented it now. Fascinating insight, because you start on the fast 800 and then you move to the 5-2 to make it slightly more sustainable. So you do 5 days at regular calorie intake and 2 days at 800. And it's very much off a Mediterranean diet. So that's like another one. But how do I know that that one's okay? But what about keto? Should I go and do keto? Like, there's so many. How would you know? How would you know?
I think the best thing for you to do is like invest in education, do your research, do your own research, you know, get in touch with coaches that are well recognized.
Well, then you go down a whole different ball game. See, for me, I guess the biggest barrier for people, especially that I work with, and I literally had a lady say to me the other day that I've been doing this all these years, but no one's ever actually told me how. Like,
have you gone seeking advice?
But she can't, the accessibility, for me personally, doing online coaching has been the most sustainable way that I've managed. I've never stuck to this lifestyle change, is what I call it now. My life for 2 years. I normally do a diet for 6 months, get bored, rebound harder. That's the cycle, the yo-yo diet culture.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the difference was that I did get some education in online coaching that enabled me to be sustainable in it. So I can afford online coaches. People who attend Slimming World pay 20 quid a month. Online coaching can be over 100 quid a month.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it is, I guess it's just how you look at it. Like, is it an expense, or is it something like you're investing in your health?
But what if you've got kids and you can't? And I think that's the barrier, especially like working up here. The Northeast is very deprived area, and obesity is a big issue up here. But they live on convenient foods because the affordability is difficult, and the access to, that's what I mean.
Barrier, isn't it?
So if you only use what's on social media, it's like a minefield. So these people are like stuck in feeling, oh, I'll do this, but then that, do it for a week, that hasn't worked, right? I'll do this, that hasn't worked out. And it's like a complete minefield of where to start. And the overwhelmingness of all these different things probably create that feeling that then they eat more to combat the fact they feel so overwhelmed and rubbish that they don't know where to start. Like the cycle is perpetuated by modern technology that's supposed to be helping.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's also like, how are they going to know where to look for help as well?
Yeah. And it's weird, isn't it? Because what I would perceive, so one thing I sort of try and grow with the clients is around their awareness of what they're eating to start with. Yeah. Whether they keep a food diary, whether they use sort of like apps, however they want to do that, they become aware of actually what is in food. Because a lot of the time you have a biscuit and it's 80 calories and you have 6 and you don't realize, like, I'm terrible. If I start eating a biscuit, I'll eat the whole packet. I will. So I just don't buy biscuits. But I think that until you grow that awareness, that won't change. But the commonality between all the diets is generally around calorie, and it's around points or some sort of system of sins, points, calories. Yeah. But then that can also be detrimental.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So what is the place to start? And that's that. Do you see what I mean? The whole thing of diet culture. And if we work on our relationship with food, but if we don't actually understand what is in that food, how are you ever going to make a change? So then we have to find the balance. But I can sort of say to someone, start looking at that, they can get onto a calorie counting app and become obsessed, and then you're down a whole new avenue.
Oh yeah, like it can be really, really powerful. It could be amazing, but in the same instance, you know, it can be really detrimental, like you're saying, to like mental health, and people can become obsessed. Like I've been there. I have absolutely been there before I started my contest prep. My previous so with my previous coach, before I started with him, before my surgery, I was like I literally one day I just woke up, I was like, I want to be like really, really lean. I had no idea what I was doing. In my mind, I was like, right, okay, so eat less, do more. That's like the common thing, you know. So I did that, and I literally, everything went into my fitness pal, and I was obsessed. But yes, I got really lean. But the way I dieted was probably not most optimal. So I actually got really unhealthy by it because I wasn't doing it properly. But then if you don't know if you're doing it properly, like what else are you supposed to do?
And then I guess what you go off is, in supermarkets, the traffic light system on foods. When you go to a restaurant and they have now calories on menus, like we're exposed to it. And if we use them as tools and we still don't get anywhere, what does that mean? And that's why I think it's so hard for people when people beat themselves up because they're not losing weight, or they're not getting into the figure or shape or size clothing that they want to get into. But it's an absolute minefield.
Yeah, it is. And like, how do you break out without, like, if you don't know that there's online coaches out there that can help them and educate them, or that there's courses out there that they can enroll on, like how do people?
And I was never exposed to any of that. So I had only ever heard of like Serial and Weight Watchers and the more publicized ones.
Yeah, because you would see it, wouldn't you? Like if you go to Tesco's, you see it on the billboard, like it's there. So first of all, it's going to be, it's going to be there, and you just think, right, okay, that's my fix. That's going to solve everything. And then that's all they know.
And then I knew gyms have personal trainers, but there's absolutely no way that I, £400, was going to go to a gym and meet somebody and have the fear of judgment, the fear of failure. All those things were just too much. So mine was by pure chance that I even knew an online coach existed. And for a long time, I thought that was the only online coach that existed.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. And now I can't believe the abundance of online coaches that are out there. And actually how much of a competitive game it is for online coaching.
Yeah, definitely.
But then because I follow so many, it's so conflicting. Because some value mindset and mental health, others value 8-week transformations, but they're not sustainable living.
No,
it is. I just find diet culture crazy, and is there no wonder we live in a world where people don't necessarily eat the right things, because A, they either don't know it's the right thing, or B, it's so overwhelming that they go back to their comforts.
There's that, and I think people just always want a quick, easy fix that is like doesn't require much energy at all.
Oh, I took I don't know if we had to say all these things anyway. I took XXL Medical, which are like pills that you take. Look at you looking confused.
I'm just like, well, what is this?
It's a whole new world.
Does it have like a tape? Do you like a tape measure?
Oh, I think
tape measure in the box.
I think that orange writing on the box.
Yeah. I think I've seen something of the sort.
Yeah, they're like supposed to make you thin. That's my understanding. Pop the pill.
How did you come about those? Like,
I think I got desperate at one point and Googled like how to lose weight, and there was loads about green leaf tea. Had the green leaf tea, and then there was another one about different lemon and honey something else in a tea every morning would make your metabolism start, and then
Wow.
you burn fat. Like, and I was naive and I guess desperate. So
Like
I
you don't know what you don't know. And if it's on the internet, obviously it's true.
that XXL medical is like a thing that supermarkets sell, and it's very expensive. So I was having that. It made me ill. And let me tell you,
Surprised.
it must burn fat, but how it exits your body is just not great.
You get like hot flushes and stuff.
I just felt ill.
Mm.
And Chantel, this is the TMI part of the podcast. Are you ready?
Oh, lovely.
Chantel and I had gone for a walk. I don't know if I've ever told her this. I told her it was a different tablet, but I can't remember.
Oh,
We'd gone for a walk at these woods. I won't say what woods they are. This is so embarrassing. And I took it in the morning, and as we were going to walk the dogs, it literally overwhelmed me, the urge to go to the loo, like back, like horrendously. And I carried on walking back to the car, and I was like, I'm just not going to make it, Chantel. I'm not going to make it. Like, and I literally.
poor Chantel. She is literally
pooed myself. Yeah, she has it all, bless her. I literally pooed myself. And this is when we were close, but nowhere near as we are now. And I got back to the car, and luckily, because of where I worked, I had a sleeping bag in my car. No.
Oh, fucking hell.
Not like a sleep. No, I said that wrong. A sleep-in bag. So when I'd worked and I was doing a sleep-in at work, so when I stayed the night, I have a bag full of clothes and towels, not like a sleeping bag.
Oh, it's like an overnight bag.
Yeah, an overnight bag.
Okay.
That's what I
Ideal sleeping bag.
Yeah, no. So I luckily there was one in there in the car with my pajamas in. So I had to sit in the back of the car. Chantel had gone to her car and come back, and she opened the door, literally like didn't even look at me, and was like, I have some tissues.
Oh, fucking hell. Do you know what? Chantel deserves a medal.
Tissues, and then I cleaned myself up, and I was just like, this is not okay.
Oh, man.
So that's what XXL Medical did to my body.
I wonder if they're like basically like diuretics.
I just think it's just some sort of fat burner. I don't know.
If some sort of like diuretics, laxatives. I bet it seriously dehydrates you as well.
I guess the one thing that I always wanted to know, and people still ask me about this now, is there a right time to eat? Is it ever too late at night to eat food?
No, not really.
People, and you look really confused by that, but it's really common.
It is common. Like people say, oh, you can't eat carbs past 7 o'clock, or you can't eat before bed.
Don't eat. Like people think that like they can't eat past like 7, but sometimes I eat late.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fine. But obviously, like, you need to think about what additional stress you're adding on the body whilst you're kind of sleeping. And like your body goes into like storage mode as well. So it is really, it's like, it doesn't really matter if you're going to eat before bed, but if you think about your body's going to have to like process all of this food, and you're trying to go to sleep, you're trying to be in a resting state to have an optimal sleep, because sleep is super, super important. You're probably not going to have the best sleep if you are eating so close to bed.
So what if I was a secret eater? Not that this has ever happened. And
talking off experience.
I get up at like 1 a.m. and go downstairs and eat chocolate out of the chocolate drawer that I shouldn't be in because it's mum's chocolate. Not that I ever did that.
So, number one, you would need to establish why you're waking up during the night. Going off personal.
I was going to the toilet, and to go to the toilet, I had to pass the fridge. And then in the fridge, I knew there was chocolate.
So, like your blood sugars, like if your blood sugars, I'm pretty sure if they dip, that can wake you up during the night. So again, you just need to go back to what your daily intake is like.
It was that I wanted the chocolate. It was just I was going past the fridge and the chocolate was there. Like, I didn't feel hungry for the chocolate. It was just a convenience.
So it was a lack of control then.
I mean, I was a child. And,
But then you also need to look into the fact, like, if you didn't wake up during the night for the toilet, then you wouldn't have had the chocolate.
well, I guess that comes down to, though, if you need to go for a wee, that then you cut drinks off earlier, don't you?
You could taper water down before bed, yeah, but it's not like it's not a massive deal.
So from this, what would be your takeaway? What would you want people to know about diet culture?
I think be a little bit more patient. Don't invest in the first thing that you see. Just because your favorite influencer is maybe promoting something, like, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's right for you. I think everybody has their own requirements. Like, everything is personal to that person and what, like, their needs are, because one thing might work for one person, but then might not work for the other. So I guess do your research, ask around before jumping ships and just thinking, or like, I'm just going to do that because 1, it's free, 2, it's, a quick fix, which is what everybody wants, and 3, it might not require much effort. Okay. So it doesn't, I think people are just very like, people don't want to invest time. They don't want to invest money. They want quick fixes. For a lasting, positive lifestyle change, it's probably most optimal to find a pattern of eating that's sustainable, considers food preferences. So that would be like your food sources, like what are you choosing? And also like something that contains the food that you enjoy, because like we spoke about, you don't need to cut out your favorite foods. It's just having discipline and portion control, and as well, foods that provide adequate energy to support the things that people want to do.
You know what was going through my head then?
What?
Man, I love the cake.
What?
Oh my god, I did not know. So that's off Little Britain as well.
Is it?
Sure it is, yeah. She I'm sure at some point, yeah, it's like they put a really deep voice on and go, man, I love the cake. That's it, chuck your water on yourself.
It literally just went.
So attractive.
So attractive.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said around the psychology of that people say they haven't got time, and some people legitimately don't. And then it comes down to some people don't think they're worth the time. And that comes down to a lot of belief systems around, well, I haven't got the time is the excuse to actually not do the internal work of, I don't believe I'm worth investing in. I don't believe I'm worth putting the time in. There's like a lot of things underpinning that. I think for me, having navigated a very minute amount of what's out there, I think it's to be kind to yourself. And I know that's really cliche, but you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the 21st century living is difficult and it poses so many challenges. And, life is going to happen. Like, no one can stop the waves of life. But in terms of diet, I would look at the sustainability and in terms of what you can control in your life. If you can stick to a keto diet for your whole life and never really eat carbs again, absolutely go for it. If you think
it's not the most optimal, you'll find probably 80-85% of people that attempt keto can't stick to it.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. And that's what I think it's about, whether you look at it and you can sustain it. And it's what like a diet for me comes in many different reasons, in that people attend Slim & More because they want to lose weight, but they also just want other people that are on the same journey as them to be there with them. There's a lot of social aspect, and it's about assessing what your needs are at the time. If you're feeling isolated, you feel like you're on your own, and going to a group will give you that boost. Absolutely go. And then focus on what the changes are that you're making in your life to create this to happen. Not necessarily just the food, but are you waking up a bit earlier now because you need to do your food prep for the day? Are you shopping 4 times a week rather than ordering a takeaway in? Like, really notice the behavior changes that come with that change, with that diet, and then implement that as a lifestyle rather than a short-term fix to the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And just even by rewording it, it's because it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change. People just think, oh yeah, I'm on a diet. Like, no, you're not. It's not essentially a diet, because it's a lifestyle change, isn't it?
From experience, I've lost like, I don't know, 10 and a half stone, and I've never really found the actual doing difficult. I found the mental processes crippling, but I've not found the actual doing very difficult. But what I do now, I didn't do at the start. I didn't start by going to the gym 5 days a week, meal prepping every day, doing 13,000 steps or whatever it is. I literally just started by nailing my food.
Well, yeah. And that's exactly how it should be. You should start off with the bare minimums. And then as time goes on, you know, you slowly, and it shouldn't be overwhelming to begin with either. Like, how, like, and again, it's all person dependent. Like, what are people's goals? Like, if people's goals are to do a photo shoot, like, their plan is going to be completely different to you know, your mum down the road that's just wanting to change her lifestyle and feel.
I've not once like give up, especially since being with you, and even on like photo shoot prep, I haven't give up chocolate. I haven't give up the thing.
You don't need to. That's the thing. You don't need to.
So then it's learning. That's the difference between a lifestyle and a diet.
Yeah.
Is diet tells us we can't have chocolate, we can't have crisps, we can't have biscuits.
Right, okay, yeah.
We can't have all those things, but actually you can, and that's where it turns from a diet to lifestyle. So yes, go to Slimming World, figure it out, but make sure that what you're doing is sustainable living. Of course, you're going to want to go and eat chocolate or a piece of cake with your friend. There is allowances for that, and to not get stuck in the culture of, I have to stick to this and this is the only way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and like I said before, Slimming World and Weight Watchers, you know, they could have something incredible because they're so good at like building a community and things like that. But just say, for example, you know, you've got this woman that goes to Slimming World, whatever, and then for whatever reason she can't go anymore. And then what happens next? Has she actually learned anything from that process to then be able to carry into her day-to-day life? No. She will just revert back.
Is education.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like one of the biggest things I do in my coaching. Like, how much have you learned since being with me that like you didn't know before?
Loads. Actually unreal.
And I feel like
it's basic as well. Stuff that I feel like I probably should know, but I just didn't.
Yeah, I know, but like you said to me before, what you don't know, you don't know. But like coaching for me isn't just about me giving somebody a plan. Like, people are coming to me, they're investing in their own education, you know, their own health, their own life. So my job as a coach is to educate my clients as well, because they're not going to need a coach for the rest of their lives. You know, they need to know what they're doing, why they're doing. So later on down the line, they'll get to a stage where they'll be like, do you know what? I can do this alone. So that's like the aim.
So your take home is education and empowerment.
Empowerment.
Yeah, that's what I deciphered from that. And I guess my take home would be around compassion and sustainability.
Well, yeah, like everything, like the two key points when it comes to a successful lifestyle change is adherence and sustainability. Without them two, you've got no chance.
Well, I hope that people have enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, it's been interesting, hasn't it?
Man, I feel like you've eye-opened to the world of bigger people and our challenges.
Yeah, definitely. But no, it's been good. And I do feel like there is like much more to be said about it, but I do feel like we've covered the majority of what we needed to. I'm just trying to think if there was anything else. Was there anything else that you wanted to?
No, I think that we've navigated sort of the social media, the history of it, certainly how that comes into everyday life, and actually what it is that I guess we should look out for when embarking on a lifestyle change, and what the difference is, I guess, between a diet and lifestyle change. So
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I agree. So I think we'll wrap that one up. Until next time. Wrap it up. So oh my god, who even are we? Anyway, guys, until next time, I'm sure we've got something very juicy to talk about in our next one.
Bit of my life story, aren't we?
Yes, like I said, very juicy.
Yeah, you're all in for a treat.
No, yeah, it'll be good. It'll be a good listen and a good watch as always. So yeah.
Bye.
Anyway, thanks guys. Until next time.
Thanks for listening.
Bye. Bye guys.